After preparing for the journey, the storyline of the previous life, Mage Gao won Xia Yuan, dressed as an NPC and became the fourth son of the newly born Grand Duke of the Empire. He originally intended to embrace the dull aristocratic life, but never expected that the times would change. As the last obstacle, the family has been labeled as villainous by the new aristocracy and is about to be overwhelmed by the historical trend. Helpless, Xia Yuan had to rely on his understanding of game history to gradually enhance his own strength. Lost treasures, taboo ancient weapons, eternal secrets, forgotten epics with one's own strength, turn the tide of the times. Change your destiny against the heavens. Reborn from the ashes. Knights swear, mages sing, dragons spread their wings. Pursue magic and truth, control your own destiny in the times. Standing in the clouds, floating city, the throne of the sky. The bell rang, and the signs finally appeared. The time for the stars to return has arrived, Gugu Group. 4506318831 Keywords of the novel. Rebirth behind the scenes Noble Mage no pop-ups, Rebirth behind the scenes Noble Mage complete collection download TXT, Rebirth behind the scenes Noble Mage latest chapter reading. Chapter 1. Has been arranged. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 1 has been arranged, in the year 3401 of the magical calendar, the month of rain, the 26th day, night, heavenly fire burns the city, the earth shakes, as if the end of the world. The ring fades, the royal vein withers, the floating 9 cities eventually return to the earth, and the magical radiance fades away. A brief history of the empire, preface. The day of destruction, Xia Yuan suddenly opened his eyes. In front of me is a familiar mirror, but the person reflected in the mirror is young and somewhat unfamiliar. A handsome face with straight facial features and slightly longer light black hair. The pale skin flickered in the flickering candlelight, and the overall temperament appeared somewhat eerie. With some disbelief, Xia Yuan raised his hand and pressed it on his face with a slight tremble. He looked at the figure in the mirror who had made the same action and took a deep breath. Roaming and rumbling. A loud explosion of thunder echoed outside the window, causing Xia Yuan, who was still somewhat stunned, to tremble all over. He remembers this night, when a thunderstorm caused a short circuit in the power supply, he had to light a white candle to illuminate himself. In his memory, 3 days later. To be precise, 2 days, 20 hours, and 16 minutes later. The game, Mysterious Era, which was ahead of the entire era by an unknown number of years, will release its first trailer. And began to release semi-open beta qualifications to the whole society, announcing their arrival to the entire era. In this era where mainstream online games are still stuck in VR, an almost unbelievable 98.25% immersive game is a complete blow to the entire gaming industry in terms of dimensionality reduction. The internal testing will start 1 week after the release of the trailer, which is 10 days later. Major studios have confirmed that their promotion is not an exaggeration, but rather a genuine event. We have decisively begun to cancel all other gaming businesses and fully transition to the Mysterious Era. When the 15-day internal test ended, ordinary players who were already too eager to bear it rushed in. For a while, the prices of game supplies skyrocketed, and countless people became wealthy overnight relying on this game. Half a month after the official launch of Age of Mystery, the daily activity of all other games has almost dropped to zero. I don't know how many game company owners have pulled off their hair for this, but the wig industry has ushered in a small wave of enthusiasm as a result. It is said that when The Mysterious Era first came out, a game company owner did not give up and found the chief engineer of the company's R&D department. I hope to decipher the principles behind the game helmet and cabin of Age of Mystery within 3 months, and develop similar devices. The chief engineer told him on the spot with gentle and polite words that he was living in a dream. If someone can decipher the principle of that strange helmet within a year, they can take off their ball and kick the person who cracked it head on. After hitting a wall in the technical department, the boss who still had a glimmer of luck in his heart went to find a game engineer, but when he entered the personal office of the chief game engineer, he was shocked to find that this guy was actually lazy in playing Age of Mysteries during work. Of course, game company owners will not sit idly by. They brought in some experts and professors to vigorously promote that this game is too realistic and may cause serious identity recognition barriers for players. And for this reason, I hope that the Kojia can take action to completely ban this game. But for some unknown reason afterwards, these experts quickly withdrew one by one and had no impact on the release of The Mysterious Era. Xia Yuan breathed a sigh of relief, ending his wild and scattered memories. He lightly patted his face and his brain quickly began to think. Since Rebirth has reached the time when the trailer for Age of Mysteries has not yet been released, it is necessary to find a way to collect a beta spot for Age of Mysteries. Although the files will be deleted after the beta test, only those who qualify for the beta test can have the priority to purchase the first-generation Global Limited Edition game pods. The game official only put 5,000 game cabins in Xia Yuan's mainland, and there are more monks than porridge. Except for the 500 spots available for beta testers to purchase first, the remaining 4,500 are not something that ordinary individual players can access, and they are even reserved early before entering the market. The biggest difference between the first-generation game helmet and the game cabin is the limitation of online time. Considering the need for players to eat and use the restroom, the helmet can only be worn for a maximum of 16 hours per day. A game cabin supplemented with nutrient solution can be online for 18 hours, which results in game cabin players spending 1/8 more game time than helmet players. For high gamers who take this as their profession, this is the difference between heaven and earth. And everyone's helmet is bound to their identity, so changing devices to avoid restrictions is also not feasible. In addition, there is also a nutritional solution that comes with the first-generation game cabin, which is also a good thing, but it is only sold to players who own the game cabin. After only 1 month of release, the supply stopped, and the price increase in the future is even more outrageous than that of a house. Before his rebirth, Xia Yuan was just an ordinary individual player, and his family was not wealthy either. As a result, he naturally did not get any beta test spots, did not buy the first-generation game cabin, and did not stock up on the first-generation nutrient solution. All opportunities to make a fortune were perfectly avoided by him. He didn't even notice when he hit the boss that his dodging skills were so smooth. Although his skills and consciousness are also considered high-end, due to game time limitations, he gradually opened up a gap with the first-tier players who use game cabins. This directly fed back to his income, causing him to still be financially strapped when the lower-priced and unlimited second-generation game cabin and nutrient solution were released a month later. It wasn't until the game was almost 3 months old that he barely managed to meet his needs. But by this time, his level had already widened the gap with the first tier. So, he simply let himself go and no longer insisted on leveling up and improving his strength, but instead wandered back and forth among famous libraries on the mainland. Starting to study literature materials that record background stories in various regions, attempting to find clues related to treasures, hidden tasks, hidden professions, and so on. This type of player is collectively referred to as a storyline player, and there are also many. Xia Yuan's logical analysis ability, insight, and luck are all good. In the end, he truly discovered several hidden tasks and relics through careful collection and organization of information, and obtained many good things, returning his strength to the first tier. This has earned him a considerable reputation among storyline players, earning him the nickname Lucky Silver Hand. During this process, he accidentally unlocked a hidden title: Junior Monument Scholar. When trading unidentified relics, he can receive a 5% price correction. From then on, a door to a new world opened to him, and the incredibly realistic background story of The Mysterious Era captivated him, even making exploring ancient mysteries his main task without taking it seriously. Ka-cha-cha. Rumble and rumble, another huge explosion echoed through the sky, pulling his thoughts back to reality. There are still 10 days left until the start of the internal testing, which is enough. Temporarily letting go of his thoughts, he looked at the young version of himself in the mirror, and an uncontrollable smile climbed onto Xia Yuan's cheek. He felt a surge of pride in his chest for a moment, and couldn't help but slightly raise his chin. His left hand fell behind him and he recited a poem on the spot. Brilliant in appearance, shining on the sun and moon, hidden in the belly. A stranger is like a jade, and the young master is unparalleled in the world. Crack. Rumble. As if echoing his words, a huge thunderbolt echoed through the sky once again. Amidst the thunder, the quiet burning candle flames suddenly swayed, and the shadows inside the room wriggled slightly, as if they had gained life. Xia Yuan was unaware of the slight changes in the candle flame, but as he gazed at the reflected eyes in the mirror, he couldn't help but feel an impulse in his heart. He gently lifted his right hand and his lips slowly moved. Speaking of which, it's been a long time since I did this. The rain outside the window grew even heavier, with big raindrops hitting the glass with a crackling sound. Blinding lightning kept dividing the dark night sky, and the loud thunder could not be ignored. The dimly lit room presented an eerie and inexplicable scene. Under the flickering candlelight, a young man seemed to be possessed, constantly making strange movements in front of the mirror. Reciting strange and eerie syllables at a certain rhythm, as if engaging in some ancient and evil ritual. Scissor stone. Cloth. Scissor stone. Cloth. After a period of time, due to a slight sourness in his right hand as a protest, Xia Yuan finally decided to stop this meaningless action. I didn't lose a game, I deserve it. As if nothing had happened, Xia Yuan nodded in praise of the mirror and turned around, ready to leave the restroom. At this moment, his movements suddenly stopped. Wait. In the second to last game just now, when I played the game. Did he seem to have played scissors? Upon careful reflection on a previous detail, Xia Yuan blinked and his smile gradually solidified. Can I still lose while guessing with the mirror? Although it was still in the summer of August, Xia Yuan felt the air slightly chilly. Slowly turning his head, he looked at himself in the mirror and tentatively raised his right hand, his reflection still synchronized. Did you remember wrong? He breathed a slight sigh of relief. That's right, how could the reflection move on its own? On the coffee table in the living room, in the pitch-black display screen of the electronic watch, the blood-red color forms a row of cold numbers. 23.59.59, although he comforted himself in his heart that he was fine, Xia Yuan still decided to leave here as soon as possible. But when he picked up the candle and was about to go out, the candle flame inexplicably flickered and then went out silently. The interior was instantly plunged into pitch black. Xia Yuan was aroused and a cold sweat suddenly oozed from his back. Roaming and rumbling. At this moment, a huge blue and white lightning bolt pierced through the night sky, accompanied by deafening thunder, and the dazzling electric light immediately illuminated the room with a snowy brightness. At this moment, he noticed a detail with sweat all over his body. The corners of the figure's mouth in the mirror quietly curved a strange curve. Seemingly sensing his gaze, the reflection in the mirror suddenly turned its head. I don't know when my eyes changed to pure black and white, staring straight at his face. Xia Yuan's hair stood on end, his brain crazed as he wanted to escape, but his legs remained motionless as if they had been filled with lead. The next second, the radiance brought by lightning disappeared in an instant like when it appeared, and the mirror and reflection returned to pitch black. Only the black and white eyes of the reflection are still clear and eerie. Xia Yuan looked at the mirror with a cold body, and as his eyes met, a twisted and cold flow of information suddenly came from the dark mirror, injecting into his brain along the connected gaze. That was an extremely toothy feeling, as if thousands of constantly crawling black ants had burrowed into a groove in the cerebral cortex. The content of the information is only a short sentence. At the end of the 7 cycles of light and dark, you will come to Univar. Passively receiving a large amount of spiritual information injection, Xia Yuan trembled violently like an electric shock, and his hands hugged his head in pain. In the next moment, the ceiling light suddenly lit up, and a soft beige light scattered, dispelling the darkness inside. A new character for Unival has been created. If there is no character, please cast the fan image here. End of this chapter. Chapter 2. Preparation before crossing. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 2 Preparation before crossing, huh? Wait, did you call? At this moment, Xia Yuan's heart was only filled with happiness, completely devoid of any doubts about why the power supply had been restored so quickly. Taking a deep breath, I carefully looked back at the mirror. The mirror perfectly reflected my face, without any abnormalities. Everything that had just happened seemed to be just an absurd nightmare. 7 light and dark cycles. Unival. A storm surged in his heart, and as a seasoned storyline player of The Mysterious Era, Xia Yuan had a clear understanding of the meaning of this obscure term. Unival, that's exactly what NPCs called that world in the game. Having regained his composure, Xia Yuan regained his composure, controlled his body, and took a few quick steps before leaving the restroom. Then he quickly locked the door to the bathroom and turned on all the lights in the room. The heavy rain outside the window has stopped at some point, and even the clouds have dispersed. The light silver moonlight quietly falls on the city after rain, giving off a serene and hazy beauty. 00.31.12 Glancing at the table, Xia Yuan walked back to the bedroom in 3 steps, took a sip of water, and wiped the cold sweat from his forehead. After several breaths, he slowly calmed down and began to carefully consider the content contained in the information. The general idea of that message should be: 7 days later, I will travel to the world of Mysterious Era. But why is it 7 days later? Is Univar a real existence? While pondering carefully, analyze the potential hidden information. Xia Yuan skillfully opened the computer and entered the browser to post. I will be transported in 7 days. What should I do? Urgent. Wait online. Typing out the title, he carefully added below. Just now there was a power outage, and I went to the bathroom with a candle. While washing my hands, I was idle and bored. I played a few rounds of scissors and rock cloth with the mirror. Then. When he hit then, Xia Yuan pinched his chin and thought for a moment. What should I say? I played guessing with the mirror in the middle of the night. And ended up losing. Forget it, no one saw it anyway. Then, at the end of the game, I suddenly realized that I seemed to have won the second to last game. The mirror was covered in cloth, I was scissors. Afterwards, I felt something was wrong. As I was about to leave the restroom, the candle suddenly went out, and then the person in the mirror suddenly turned their head and smiled at me. Finally, there was an additional message in my mind, which read, at the end of the 7 cycles of light and dark, I will come to another world. What to do, everyone? Urgent. Wait online. After posting, the temporary relief of drowsiness due to shock came back from the body. Unable to resist the heavy drowsiness, Xia Yuan took the opportunity to sleep. It's too late, the dog's life is in danger. The next day, Xia Yuan, who had been haunted by strange dreams all night, wore dark circles under his eyes and opened his computer. He was delighted to find that he had received many replies. But when he eagerly opened the page, experience +3, goodbye. What? Xia Yuan paused for a moment, and the screen continued to scroll down. Another crazy one. Nowadays, online novels are really harmful. Image, the brain CT results are out. The OP has a slight problem with his brain, but I have already fixed it with Photoshop. Actually, you are a descendant of aliens who have been separated for many years. They are here to pick you up and take you back to the Andromeda Galaxy. Looking at the building that was crooked to an unknown place, Xia Yuan stared blankly. Calm down a bit, Xia Yuan rechecked the post he posted. Later on, he found with some sadness that he himself did not believe the landlord's nonsensical stories. After thinking for a moment, he opened the browser again and skillfully posted another post. Cash for creativity. What would you do if you traveled in 7 days? After typing out the title, Xia Yuan returned to the post he posted last night and copied the content, pasting it into a new post. And below, I would like to add that I want to write a novel, but I hope to brainstorm some details, so I am here to solicit some plans and suggestions. If your content is accepted by me, I will privately send you a 100 cash red envelope. The collection deadline is midnight 1 week after the posting time, and red envelopes will be distributed uniformly after the collection is completed. The effect was good this time, except for a few oatmeal pieces. A more serious response finally appeared. According to the owner's setting, as the protagonist is uncertain about the way of crossing, both hands need to be prepared at the same time. Firstly, let's talk about clothing. As the environment after crossing is uncertain, the protagonist needs to prepare protective equipment such as bulletproof vests and helmets, as well as various outdoor tools, medicines, and consumables. In terms of weapons, the owner can set them themselves, and remember to prepare laptops, large-capacity smartphones, as well as the required solar power banks and backup batteries. During these 7 days, the protagonist should download as much professional knowledge as possible and save it to their computer and phone. For example, using methods of making broken glass, cement, gunpowder, as well as various classics, poems, etc., these are half a golden finger when brought to a different world. By the way, there is also knowledge about the principles of mass energy conversion weapons and the identification of radioactive minerals. Perhaps the protagonist will never use these, but if a person doesn't even have any dreams, what is the difference between them and salted fish? Moreover, there is still some word count left. Speaking of soul-piercing, because only memories can be taken away. So the protagonist needs to master an efficient memory method in a short period of time, and then try to remember the content mentioned above as much as possible. In your spare time, you can take a look at outdoor survival guides, actors' self-cultivation, and a comprehensive collection of auxiliary communication psychology. These can help the protagonist integrate into the environment more quickly and improve their survival rate when they first travel. What can I do? I'm also very desperate. How to cross is not the final say. After reading the advice of the online experts, Xia Yuan's mood was complicated, but his fingers instinctively replied that he had used it 1,000 times before. Thank you, Lord. Lord, have a safe life. After replying, he thought for a moment and added another sentence downstairs. Buy Apple or Huawei for your phone. Satisfied by the sudden surge in response volume, Xia Yuan turned off his computer. At this moment, he suddenly realized something. The mirror is the final say. Mirror. Should I just smash the mirror? Xia Yuan is a bit conflicted. He has now calmed down. Upon careful consideration, it's not bad to travel to the world of swords and magic, and besides, I have a good understanding of that world. What if? It means handsome immortality. But the world background of the mysterious era is not peaceful, which is a disadvantage of the high demon world. It is easy to be affected by the battles between the strong and die inexplicably. Rebirth and transmigration, two super strong golden fingers overlapping together, should have become stronger golden fingers. But why did it become like this? After hesitating for a while, he still carried a hammer into the bathroom. It's better to be more stable. Bang 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 bang. The result left him feeling a bit disheartened. After a fierce hammering, there were no scratches on the surface of the mirror. He even suspected that what he smashed was not a mirror, but a solid metal wall. Sure enough, it's not that simple. Xia Yuan sighed and threw the hammer aside, while also letting go of his inner turmoil. He considered it and decided to do 3 hand preparations at the same time. Firstly, he opened a famous shopping app and directly ordered various equipment with the money he had originally planned to buy. And we have all agreed with the store that the goods must arrive within 3 days, and postage is not a problem. After placing the order, Xia Yuan immediately began to learn the memory method and worked hard to memorize the knowledge he felt might be useful. After electronic devices arrive, they memorize and download a large amount of professional knowledge related to various scientific principles. He is very familiar with the world environment of the mysterious era, and has a very prosperous magical civilization. Low-end industrial products such as glass and gunpowder have already emerged, let alone magic. One hand, turning fossils into mud, plus, turning mud into stone, plus, shaping solid stones, is much higher than building materials such as cement. Only high-end scientific achievements that do not exist in Uniwell are truly valuable information. Well, strange knowledge has increased again, such as self-cultivation of actors, wildlife handbook, complete guide to assisted communication psychology. Although Xia Yuan did not know in what form he would travel, he understood that the survival conditions after the journey would be directly linked to the level of preparation before the journey. During these days, he almost showed an attitude of preparing for the college entrance examination and went all out to memorize various knowledge. End of this chapter. Chapter 3. Time has arrived, crossing. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 3. Time has arrived, crossing. In the following days, while studying, Xia Yuan occasionally glanced at the posts and referred to the replies from netizens. Of course, compared to valuable replies, there are more quirky responses with tricky perspectives. The landlord may have been summoned by a magical girl from a different world, and upon crossing over, he will be signed a contract to become a demon. No, it must have been summoned by a certain warcraft. After crossing over, she will be signed a contract to become a magical girl. Perhaps it was discovered by a great mage who was searching for extraterrestrial life and used it as experimental material. Then he was captured and turned into advanced experimental material. 7 days were spent to construct a traction ritual based on coordinates. I can't afford it. I can't afford it. Xia Yuan calmly skipped these replies and was about to cross over. At this point, if his thinking patterns were further sculpted by netizens, he would really be doomed. It is worth mentioning that during these 7 days, almost all of Xia Yuan's physiological needs such as eating and going to the bathroom were solved in the small restaurant downstairs. After being frightened on the day of his rebirth, he developed a psychological shadow over the bathroom at home and even paid a high price to have someone replace the explosion-proof door. This once made the workers who came to install the door very puzzled. Is there any explosive in your bathroom? Xia Yuan had no choice but to use the excuse that there were some problems with the toilet, and then fled in confusion under the eerie gaze of the workers mixed with admiration. On the 7th day, in the evening, the setting sun set in the west, and the distant horizon blocked the last ray of sunlight. Xia Yuan looked at the sunset with nostalgia and raised his hand to turn off the computer. Losing the only light source, the bedroom suddenly became unusually dim. Xia Yuan sat quietly with his arms clasped around his knees, his thoughts wandering. Although he had done his best to prepare, at this final moment, he couldn't help but have some wild thoughts. I'm leaving this world tonight. Are I prepared enough? What should I do if I cross into an area that is not suitable for survival? What if it's not a journey, but a passing on the spot? What if the purpose of summoning me is actually to treat me as a pet, a demon, an experimental material, or something that cannot be provoked? Xia Yuan silently pondered in the darkness, contemplating the possible fate of the future. Forget it, it's useless to think too much about uncontrollable factors. The more he thought about it, the more he felt hopeless about life. Soon, Xia Yuan gave up thinking and began to conduct a final inspection of the prepared materials to prevent missing certain things. For those who have provided valuable replies to the posts, he has also set up a scheduled automatic transfer, as it is about to cross the border and it is useless to keep the money. After checking all the supplies, he was dressed neatly, carrying a backpack and holding a mountaineering staff, sitting silently in a chair, waiting for the moment to leave. The electronic watch was placed on a nearby computer desk, and in a dim environment, the blood-red numbers reflected in the pupils flickered every second. Slowly but steadfastly approaching 0. The night gradually deepened, but Xia Yuan was sleepless. Finally, under his slightly anxious gaze, time came, 23.59.59, at the moment when the number returned to 0, Xia Yuan suddenly stood up without warning. But then he almost fell to the ground again, relying on the support of his climbing stick to barely stand. Then, with a strange posture like a three-legged reptile, he slowly moved towards the door of the room step by step. As he moved forward, his posture gradually began to adjust and his movements became more flexible. During this process, Xia Yuan's consciousness was in a state of mixing fear and novelty. He tried to control his body to stop moving, but in the end, it was in vain, as if he were just an observer at the moment. Slowly passing through the living room, Xia Yuan opened the locked explosion-proof door with a hint of unfamiliarity, and once again stood in front of the mirror. At this moment, the mirror was unusually pitch black. As time passed, the grayish-white color tone began to overflow from the edge of the mirror and spread continuously towards all sides. The environment in the bathroom began to fade, becoming like the environment in old black and white photos. Xia Yuan looked at the strange vision around in surprise, and suddenly, an irresistible and huge suction came from the pitch-black mirror. With this force, his consciousness drifted away from his body and disappeared into the mirror. At the moment of passing through the mirror, Xia Yuan forcefully turned his head and finally took a look at his own body. In this eye, he noticed a detail with horror. Looking at myself in the mirror, the corners of my mouth had already curled up at some point, revealing an extremely familiar smile. This time, he's outside the mirror. The world in the mirror is not completely pitch black as it appears outside the mirror. On the contrary, the colorful hues that cannot be described in any language, or even discerned by the naked eye, are surging in the void space, and occasionally there are wonderful flowing lights flashing and disappearing around. Strange energy envelops Xia Yuan's consciousness, traveling through this world at an incredible speed. As time passed, some strange energy seeped into his consciousness. Simply put, it's like wrapping a roll of toilet paper around a damp towel. A portion of the moisture in the towel gradually seeps into the toilet paper roll. Passively absorbing these infiltrating energies, Xia Yuan's consciousness underwent a subtle change in breath. The feeling of absorbing energy is very comfortable, and when the conscious body is immersed in this energy, there is a concept of warmth that can dilute some of the emptiness that is not brought by the body. Perhaps it has been a long time, perhaps only a moment, and Xia Yuan cannot be certain. As his consciousness gradually began to fall into a trance, a faint and clear voice rang in his ear. Jiu Bo. Surrounded by the remaining strange energy, Xia Yuan's consciousness seemed to penetrate a certain membrane, detaching from that colorful world and once again entering a completely pitch-black place. But here, he instinctively felt very reassured and warm, and the sound of his heartbeat became exceptionally clear. Wait. Heartbeat. Xia Yuan thought vaguely, and then he felt his own movement. The darkness was pierced by strong light, and the cold air enveloped the whole body. Wow! Univar, northern part of the Gloria Empire, province of Kalas. On the southwest side of the Migoro Mountains, amidst the pristine mountains, stands a magnificent pearl-colored castle complex. Moonlight Fortress. The sky-blue golden border banner flutters in the wind, with 3 strange crystal bird badges with long tail feathers painted in the center. Several ice falcons hovered over the towering spires of the ancient castle, occasionally emitting a long cry. In front of the towering gate of the castle stands a majestic male statue with a giant dragon on its feet and a long staff in hand. On the gray stone pedestal at the bottom of the statue, there is a row of ancient Mani language engraved like a sword. The crystal bird does not fall for the mortal world. Glorious era year, rainy moon, 24th. Aldrich Low Olivandi, in the room of Blue Star, after the illusion of the mirror completely disappeared, Xia Yuan's body silently gazed at her reflection in the mirror. For a moment, he slowly fell down without a sound. The input method jumped on its own and gradually spelled out a line of words. He was so handsome by himself. Goo. Recommended ticket, end of this chapter. Chapter 4. Freshmen and Mental Fragments. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 4. Freshmen and Mental Fragments. At this moment, in the room on the top floor of the castle, a proliferation of life is taking place. The gorgeous blue and gold wave curtains firmly covered the window, and the woman with light golden long hair lay on her back in the center of the room's bedding. She furrowed her fair forehead tightly, unconsciously gripping the sheets with both hands, covered in sweat, and her amethyst-like eyes filled with pain. The magic array at the bottom of the bedding is shining with a faint light, constantly monitoring the fluctuation of women's lives. Several maids are holding various enchanted knives, nervously waiting nearby. Or closely monitor the crystal ball connected to the life monitoring array and observe the stability of the crystal ball's light. How is Madame's life fluctuating? The plump brown-haired midwife massaged the women in bed while asking questions. The gentle magic waves flowed between her fingers, relieving the woman's pain. A bit weak, but very stable. Great, keep monitoring. On the other side, the pink-haired girl mage focused on maintaining the healing spell. The solid magic of life continuously flows into the woman's body, replenishing her consumption. Amidst the tense and orderly busyness of the crowd, accompanied by a loud cry, the baby was successfully born. Congratulations, madam, you are a healthy young master. The brown-haired midwife wiped her sweat and respectfully said to the slightly weak woman on the bedding. Several enchanting tools are rapidly dancing under the control of mental power, allowing for quick follow-up processing. After everything was done, she picked up the child and sent it to the tired and panting woman. Staring at the adorable little face within reach, the woman nodded, breathed a sigh, and showed a relaxed smile. Her body completely relaxed, and her eyes slightly closed. Jennifer and Erica, I'm tired and need a break. You guys go out first. Yes, respected Madam X2. I became a newborn. The unfamiliar environment, surrounded by people speaking incomprehensible words, and influenced by his body, Xia Yuan's thinking ability decreased to the extreme. At Omega System Research subsequently, he felt himself being lifted up, and a blurry image of a woman with light golden long hair appeared before him. When he looked at her, her expression moved as if she was laughing. She is. She began to speak slowly and clearly, but Xia Yuan couldn't understand it. It wasn't any language he had ever been exposed to. Caret, #, functions. UN Omega. X2 so tired. Unable to think, my thinking gradually became stagnant, and I struggled to open my eyes. The final image that caught my eye was the blurry silhouette of everyone rushing out. Then, the young body fell into sleep. Outside the room, two men stood silently, one in front and one behind. The leader has strange ice blue hair, deep blue eyes below his sword eyebrows, resembling an bottomless ocean. His face is handsome and three-dimensional, exuding a strange charm. He is the owner of this castle, the lord of the province of Kalas, one of the 4 great dukes of the empire, the current head of the Olivandi family, and the legendary 9th-rank bloodline sorcerer. Carlot. The latter is about the same height as the former, but thinner. Dressed in a neat black tailcoat, with sharp and lively iron-gray eyes. Wearing white gloves, hands folded in front of him, standing straight behind him about 3 steps away. As the midwife and maids walked out of the room, Duke Caret's inquisitive gaze immediately swept over. How is the situation? Dear Duke. Midwife Jennifer lowered her head slightly and stared at the ground in front of the Duke, respectfully answering. Madam gave birth to a healthy boy who is now feeling tired and resting. I left 2 maids in the room to take care of him. Very good. Upon hearing the midwife's words, the Duke nodded. In the depths of the blue eyes, an imperceptible worry disappeared, replaced by relaxation and joy, and the tone couldn't help but soften. Leonard. The Duke turned around and faced the butler behind him. As usual, when the wife's postpartum weakness period ends, rewards will be given to all servants and guards in the castle. Yes, Your Highness. The butler bowed slightly to take orders. Meanwhile, the young wizard Erica carefully pushed the newborn out of the room. The Duke took a step forward upon seeing the situation and gently picked up the newborn in his swaddling clothes. His blue pupils carefully examined his lovely sleeping face, and the corners of his mouth raised uncontrollably. Is the blood vessel testing ceremony ready yet? The formation and materials have been prepared, and the family mage is on standby in the testing room. Leonard lowered his head slightly and answered in a deep voice. Okay. The Duke nodded, suppressed his thoughts, put down the newborn again, turned around and strode towards the direction of the testing room. Xia Yuan is unaware of his current situation, and at this moment, a mutation is occurring in his consciousness space. When everyone took his body to the testing room, a spiritual fragment full of a sense of existence, from an unknown source, emerged from the strange energy enveloping his consciousness. In perception, the scene was like an endless darkness in the deep sky, where a brilliant star suddenly appeared. The stars gradually approached and collided with his consciousness, then transforming into a stream of information that integrated into his consciousness. That's a brief memory clip recorded from a young child's perspective. In the magnificent room, there is a young child who looks 2 or 3 years old. The beautiful woman with blonde hair and purple eyes, who was seen at birth, stood in front of a huge floor mirror with a golden frame. The child anxiously peeked out of the mirror with their little hands, and the reflection in the mirror synchronized with it. The collision of 2 small hands across the mirror made the child giggle. Through the mirror, Xia Yuan saw the appearance of the memory owner. Her clear eyes were as clear and azure as the lake water, and under her perky nose, her small mouth grinned into a big smile. The tender skin is as fair and smooth as milk, and the light golden hair is as brilliant as the sun. The woman lowered her head to look at the child, her cheeks pressed close together, and she smiled gently, emitting a charming radiance all over her body. Remember, child, your name is Enver Carlos Elena Lo Olivandi. What a long name. Not right. Can I understand her now? In the spiritual space, Xia Yuan instinctively made a comment and then suddenly reacted. No, it's not that I can understand, but rather that the owner of memory can understand. Obtaining his memory also enabled me to master this language. However, speaking of it, the surname Olivandi seems a bit familiar. Xia Yuan had some doubts, but he didn't think much, just continued to immerse himself in browsing the information. In the testing room, the blue-robed mage stood guard in front of a huge ceremonial array, silently waiting. Upon seeing the Duke and others arrive, he quickly lowered his head, raised his right hand flat, and tapped 3 times on his chest, forming a simple equilateral triangle symbol called the Eye of Truth. He solemnly performed a mage's salute. The Duke nodded to him, strolled into the room, and casually glanced at the magic formation on the ground. Prepare for testing. The ceremonial mage nodded, took out a magic crystal with a shimmering blue luster, placed it in the core of the formation, and then gently tapped it with a staff. The crystal emits a hazy halo, and the faint blue light diffuses at its midpoint, illuminating the entire ritual array. End of this chapter. Chapter 5. Testing Ceremony. You are listening at novelfull.audio. The source has no content or has errors. Chapter 6. Title Ceremony. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 6 Title Ceremony. Due to the physical fitness of game characters being far stronger than reality, many players like to rush like this when they first start the game, and Xia Yuan is no exception. Based on the time in memory, there is still a considerable amount of time before the official opening of the service. If those 2 people are indeed players, it proves one thing. It is very likely that the internal testing is about to begin now. But this raises another question. Is this world really real? Mysterious Era is a highly realistic immersive virtual game, with extremely high NPC intelligence in the game, no different from real people. Xia Yuan couldn't determine for a moment whether he had traveled to the real world or the world of games. He tried to call the system panel, but naturally there was no response. But this persuasiveness is still somewhat lacking. NPCs are not players, even without panels, it is reasonable. So Xia Yuan thought of another way of proving it. In the past life, in order to pass the review, the game character must have a pair of pants that couldn't be taken off, and the female character also had an extra top that couldn't be taken off. This is no exception for NPCs. Countless players who have spare hearts but lack strength affectionately refer to them as sets. He secretly moved his little hands and checked himself. Fortunately, it's not flat, and the sighing pants don't exist. But what happened to those two people? Without waiting for him to continue thinking, the carriage shook slightly and seemed to have reached its destination. The scenery in front of me began to change, and the noise of the crowd seemed to ring in my ears. The roof of the carriage, which used to occupy half of my sight, was replaced by a starry night, and two familiar strange full moons hung high in the sky. Silver moon. Severn. Purple moon. Amos. Xia Yuan closed his eyes and let out a silent sigh, feeling mixed emotions in his heart. It was not until this moment that he truly felt a sense of time travel. But speaking of which, I always feel familiar here. Where are they taking me? In the evening, the naming ceremony was held as scheduled in the upper district of Kala City. The people who had already received the news rushed into the white square in front of the city lord's mansion, and the huge square covering dozens of hectares was almost crowded with people. The naming ceremony is a ceremony that only the royal family and the four major duke families are eligible to hold when new direct descendants are born. Usually held in the capital city of the family province. This is an opportunity for ordinary people to meet new members of the family, and the newborn will officially obtain their own name in the dazzling light of attention. At that time, envoys from the royal family and nobles who received invitation letters will come to observe the ceremony. There is an unwritten rule in the upper echelons of the Gloria Empire. Only newborns who have undergone a naming ceremony are truly considered formal members of the four major families or royal families, recognized by the upper-class aristocratic circles of the empire. An illegitimate child who has not undergone a naming ceremony, even if they are lucky enough to receive recognition from the family in the future, will not be accepted by the upper echelons. The towering trapezoidal platform stands in the center of the square, covering an area of 1 hectare and reaching a height of tens of feet. The main body is constructed from a whole piece of pure white obsidian. The festive crowd surrounded the high platform on 3 levels and waited in a noisy manner. At 8 o'clock at night, the main gate of the lord's mansion opened wide, and a fully armed guard led the way, followed closely by an honor guard dressed in gorgeous armor. Wherever they passed, the crowd surged towards both sides. The invited nobles of all sizes climbed onto the high platform one after another, forming small circles in groups of 3 and 2, whispering. The spellcasters of the deep blue robe are scattered throughout the high platform, making final preparations for the upcoming ceremony. After about half an hour of magic, Duke Colossus' carriage. A luxurious carriage pulled by 4 pure white unicorns of light, along with 2 identical chariots, slowly drove out of the lord's mansion. On both sides of the beautifully carved black and gold carriages are imprinted with the chilling crystal bird emblem of the Olivandi family. If a scholar proficient in magical heraldry is present, one can definitely recognize the meaning represented by the eternal coronal pattern that surrounds the heraldry and emits a faint light. The ancient family that has been passed down for thousands of years has given birth to 4 or more 9th level members, including at least 1 9th level extreme member. It has an extremely prominent history and is still in its heyday today. 3 carriages were parked in front of the high platform, and Leonard, dressed neatly, stepped down from the driver's seat of the leading vehicle to open the door for Duke Carrot. Today, the Duke changed into a classical black magic long gown and a high top hat, adorned with a white gold embroidered wavy scarf on his chest. He stepped out of the car and walked to the door of the second car, gracefully extending his right hand into the car. The engraved secret gold cufflinks shone brightly in the moonlight. A slender hand wearing lace long gloves extended from inside the car and rested it on the Duke's hand. The luxurious figure dressed in full attire slowly walked out of the carriage and gave the Duke a slight smile. The Duchess was dressed in an intricately decorated pure white long dress, elegantly extending her lotus arm wrapped in white lace for Duke Carrot to hold. The long skirt sways slightly under the influence of magic, avoiding contact with the ground and dust. Next, those who got off the car were the etiquette from the royal family, as well as the 3 descendants of the dukes who had rushed back from their respective territories. The eldest son Raymond, the second son Evan, and the third daughter Alanis. The group slowly climbed onto the high platform, and the guards and honor guards on both sides raised their guns and saluted. On the high platform, the blue-robed spellcasters completed their final inspection and gathered in a queue at the top of the platform. In front of numerous mages, Isido, the chief mage of the Olivandi family in the 8th Order Chemistry School Mage, stood quietly. He was dressed in a black silver patterned robe and held a staff about 2 meters long in his right hand. The straight body of the staff emits a silver-gray metallic luster, and the top of the staff is embedded with a large purple transparent crystal. Under the dual-color moonlight, the radiance refracted by the crystal intersects with the faint light of the robe pattern, shimmering with strange and colorful hues. Upon seeing the Duke and his companions ascend the high platform, Isido handed over his staff to his left hand, and with his free right hand, he performed an impeccable ritual of becoming a wizard by placing 3 empty dots on the equilateral triangle on his chest. The Duke and Duchess also performed the ritual of a wizard, while the envoy of the royal family lightly lifted the hat with his left hand and pressed his right hand holding a cane on his chest, bowing slightly in performing a royal ritual. With the arrival of everyone, the ceremony officially began. Erica held Xia Yuan, who was still in doubt, and walked towards the center of the high platform, where a 3-story stone circular platform was placed. The higher you go, the smaller the top area of the frustum. On the top of the top circular platform, there are 327 mysterious silver-black lines that outline a multi-dot layered nested pattern of strange stars. The middle and lower layers, along with the side of the platform, are densely covered with mysterious silver runes. She gently placed the newborn in the center of the round platform, and the silver-black star lit up with her movements, while the runes around her also began to alternate and shine brightly. As she retreated to the side, Isido took a step forward and raised his staff, his deep and hoarse voice enveloping the entire platform. The ceremony is starting. The queue of mages on both sides began to sing at the same time, and the obscure and ancient incantations converged into a mysterious melody. The suppressed magical waves spread in all directions, and a strange atmosphere rose from the top of the platform, rendering the entire square. This ceremony is not only for confirming identity, but also a huge reinforcement for the newborn. The reason why the naming ceremony is held on the night of full moon is to take advantage of the beauty of the 2 moons. The highly condensed moonlight has a mild nature and can greatly enhance the qualifications of newborns. The only downside is that each newborn can only receive 1 bi-monthly blessing, and the second one will not have any effect. Goo. Recommended ticket, end of this chapter. Chapter 7. From the Future. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 7. From the future. In the sky within a radius of hundreds of kilometers, a strange sight that is rarely seen in daily life is presented. The silver and purple moonlight suddenly dimmed, and the night sky became even deeper and darker. The stars, which were originally somewhat faded under the moonlight, now become exceptionally clear and bright. The crowd on the square suddenly became noisy, and some people who participated in the naming ceremony for the first time couldn't help but exclaim in surprise when they saw this phenomenon. On the other hand, on the high platform of obsidian in the center of the square, the two moons in the sky instantly brightened. The double moonlight, highly restrained by the secret ritual, gathers into a silver-purple beam of light, casting a hazy contrast between the high platform itself and the crowd on it. The nearly atomized and dense moonlight shimmered and flowed, gradually seeping into the body of the newborn, nourishing his body and soul. At the same time, waves of inexplicable whispers echoed in the city under the night sky. The voice was not high, but it persisted for a long time, as if the entire Colossus was murmuring the same name. Envers. At this moment, the chief mage took a step forward and lifted the newborn from the platform, holding him high in his swaddling clothes in mid-air, presenting him in front of the eyes of the crowd. The low voice, enveloped in trembling magic, echoed throughout the entire square. Look! Your Excellency Envers, the son of Kala Destiny. May the almighty gods bless and protect him. May he be wise and wise. May he be healthy and safe. Then, the Duke also walked up to the front of the high platform, smiling at the revered gaze of the crowd. The sound spread by the magical effect instantly spread throughout the entire square. I hereby declare, in the name of the Duke of Colossus, that the celebration has officially begun. All residents of Colossus have their taxes halved this year. Unlimited free supply of bread and ale. All mines, farms, and estates are on vacation for 3 days. Now. For the Empire. For Colossus. For the newborn who brought all of this, cheer. The crowd below suddenly boiled, and everyone raised their hands high, cheering together for the name of the newborn, Envers. 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 At this moment, the silver moon is rising and the purple moon is sinking, Envers. Naming ceremony. Mine. As the protagonist of tonight, Xia Yuan, who received widespread attention, suddenly felt a darkness before his eyes upon hearing the familiar name, like falling into an ice cave. The unlucky child turned out to be myself. Am I a descendant of Louis XVI who crossed the line before the death of Francis? I shouldn't have guessed that punch before crossing over. He turned his head somewhat numbly to his side, as if hoping to find something to prove that he was just a false alarm. Everything in sight was shrouded in light and mist, and in the mist, he saw the dukes and duchess that had appeared in his memory, as well as the brothers and sisters of Envers. Like a family portrait with a purple tint in the middle, neat and tidy. Under the high platform, countless people holding up their hands excitedly cheered the name of Envers. An old man dressed as a wizard held himself up and stood in front of a glowing circular platform. On both sides of the circular platform, a group of mages in deep blue robes are harmoniously singing strange spells. With the continuous sound of mantras, the mist formed by the dual-colored moonlight became more condensed. Xia Yuan's body was constantly absorbing light and mist, like a thirsty traveler in a scorching desert who suddenly discovered clear spring water. A refreshing feeling came from all over, and the already extremely high magical ability was rapidly improving again at this moment. If Xia Yuan had a panel, he would have noticed that all of his attributes were improving at this moment. Envers. Olivandi. Can't do it. Tired. Absorbing the watery moonlight, Xia Yuan felt his eyelids getting heavier for some reason and soon fell into a deep sleep, unable to support himself. Before his consciousness was about to sink into darkness, he vaguely heard a sentence mixed with exclamation. He's still absorbing. If possible, he really doesn't want to board the pirate ship of the Olivandi family at this time. The era is about to change, and the millennial imperial family representing the old aristocracy will eventually be submerged and devoured by the surging tide of the new era, turning into dust in history. In the background information, the decline of the Olivandi family began with a rebellion organized by the organization. The eldest son, Raymond, personally led his troops to suppress the resistance army in his territory, but instead was ambushed and captured. A large number of new generation units with unknown origins have emerged in the resistance army. The magic-guided construction unit. The bad news came, and Duke Carrot was furious. He personally led a large army to launch a campaign, but was ambushed by the leader of the resistance army, who was also of the 9th rank. The two sides fought in the Yanilla plain on the northwest side of the Kalas province, known as the Yanilla campaign in history. In this battle, the term resistance army first appeared in front of the world. The battle ended in a disastrous victory for the Duke's side. After leaving behind a large number of corpses, the resistance army retreated northward and occupied several cities centered around Layla Fort and Fungus City. Subsequently, the situation in the empire took a sharp turn for the worse, and all 4 major provinces blossomed, with no one knowing where the resistance army had so many personnel. At this time, a large number of small and medium-sized nobles stood up and formed an alliance in the name of jointly resisting the rebels, known as the Glory Alliance. Many chambers of commerce have announced providing financial support to the alliance in search of protection. During this process, some families that were on par with Olivendi were attacked by unknown forces and rapidly declined. 1 Earl and 3 Viscount joined the Glory Alliance with their respective families, and the remaining few major families moved to the Kingdom Federation, ushering in a major reshuffle of power in the upper echelons of Kalas. When Anver first understood this history, he had no feelings about it, but now when he recalls it, he is only left with silence in his heart. Although historical records are not false, they only selectively record some facts and unintentionally omit other key points. For example, those forces that provide support behind the resistance. For the next 6 months, Xia Yuan remained in a deep sleep. During this time, a large number of memory fragments appeared, completely supplementing the life memories of little Anver until the eve of the coming-of-age ceremony. Half a year later, when he woke up again, he finally saw the familiar golden-framed floor mirror. Through the mirror, Xia Yuan saw his current situation. The beautiful Duchess held herself and stood in front of the golden-framed floor mirror. With a gentle smile on her face, she gazed at her baby in her arms, her beautiful amethyst-like eyes filled with love. Xia Yuan quietly gazed at his new body, his deep blue and clear eyes turning slightly. Although he has seen it many times in memory, in reality, it is still the first time he has seen his appearance. Xia Yuan. Anver. Staring at the reflection in the mirror with complex emotions, recalling scenes from memories. He fell silent for a moment, like the scene from the first memory fragment, slowly reaching out his tender white hand. The movement of the reflection synchronized with him, and as the blonde woman smiled, the distance between the 2 young children inside and outside the mirror gradually shortened. In the end, through the transparent crystal, the 2 small hands gently overlapped. In an instant, the world seemed to freeze. Is it important? The small figure in the mirror suddenly laughed. I will live on, no matter what. Listening to the Duchess gently recounting the name in her ear, Xia Yuan grinned and silently greeted himself in the mirror. Hello Anver. Anvis, end of this chapter. Chapter 8. Money Ability. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 8 Money Ability. What is your superpower? I'm super rich. As time passed, Anver finally became truly fragrant. Although there are only a few decades left before the new era, the Olivandi family is really too wealthy. As one of the 4 oldest families outside the royal family. The history of Olivandi can be traced back thousands of years to the end of the Magic Empire and was once the right-hand man of Emperor Gloria. The hereditary territory of Kalas province is located on the northwest side of the empire, occupying 1/8 of the entire empire's territory. In the game background setting, it covers an area of 3.34576 million square kilometers and has a total population of millions. The annual head tax alone can reach millions of gold coins. If special taxes such as tariffs, commercial taxes, and franchise taxes are included, the total amount can even exceed 100 million, far exceeding the vast majority of kingdoms. There are countless industrial estates, both open and hidden, and various rare resource treasures are piled up like mountains. In the years after his birth, he experienced happiness that he couldn't even imagine in his previous life. Cold Abyss Ice Soul, Death Soul Secret Crystal, Moonlight Spring Water Essence, Life Source Essence, Holy Blood Potion. Various treasures that permanently enhance character talents and attributes, most of which Enver has never heard of in his past life, are used in the family like food and water, completely disregarding cost-effectiveness, just to lay the most solid foundation for him. For example, the Holy Blood Potion is the holy medicine of blood vessels, which can greatly purify blood vessels and improve physical fitness without any side effects. The only drawback is that its materials are extremely rare and difficult to obtain. Due to some accidents, Enver had taken this medication once in his past life. That was when he transferred to the rare profession, Dragon Warlock, because the key transition prop, Dragon Blood Essence, was not pure enough. After his job transfer, his blood concentration was only at level 6, and his level limit dropped directly to 62. As a last resort, he spent almost all his wealth to exchange a fist-sized small bottle of Holy Blood Potion at the Magic Council branch. The effect is also worth its price. After taking it, the originally level 6 blood concentration was raised to level 8. The upper limit of the level has been raised to 81, and the power of all attributes and bloodline spells has been greatly improved, not to mention the additional physical attributes. But it's this incredibly precious potion, discussing the pool here in the Olivandi family. Starting from 3 months after birth, soak and use once a week. There is also a dedicated person who fine-tunes the ingredients of the medication based on the specific blood details of Enver to maximize its effectiveness. When Enver first saw the pool of golden liquid, he was even slightly dizzy by the golden light on the pool surface. It seems that what I see is not medicine, but a whole pool of yellow gold coins. 3 months later, the potion was completely ineffective on him, and his 2 legendary blood vessel concentrations were both elevated to level 10. Converted to the level limit, it returns to the current version's level limit of 96. It should be mentioned here that Enver's mother, one of the 4 great families of the Alfred family, is the genius 3rd daughter of the 8th Order Radiant Bird bloodline warlock, Elena Low Alfred. The 4 major families of the Empire are all bloodline families, and the Olivandine Alfred families are the only 2 legendary bloodlines that can be verified. The bloodline of the Crystal Bird and the bloodline of the Shining Paradise Bird. At the bar mitzvah party, Carlotte met Elena, who was a teenage girl, and they danced together, developing mutual affection and quickly falling in love. So, the 2 families who were already closer together pushed the boat and agreed on a marriage alliance. Under the arrangement of their elders, the 2 quickly officially got married. At that time, both Carlotte and Elena reached the 4th level. This is a marriage based on pure love. The representatives of the 2 major families explained this marriage alliance at the aristocratic council after the wedding. Upon hearing this explanation, the expressions of the other aristocratic representatives present were immediately drawn, and many aristocrats looked strangely at the royal representative at the top. At the level of the 4 major families, marriage is no longer a personal matter, but a powerful alliance between forces. Everyone here is well aware that in an aristocratic marriage, there may be factors such as territory, wealth, and power alliances, but only love will not exist. However, the royal representatives only nodded lightly and did not express any opinions, which disappointed many nobles who were looking forward to watching a good show at the time. But no matter what, this will ultimately be the first marriage alliance between legendary bloodline families. From this, people also know what will be the outcome of the combination of 2 different legendary blood vessels, double-blooded person. Legends are unique. According to ancient records, every creature will experience a leap in its life level at the moment of entering legend, becoming a new species that transcends its original race. Unlike ordinary bloodlines, legendary bloodlines cannot be erased by other bloodlines, even if they are both legendary bloodlines. Starting from his eldest son Raymond, all 4 descendants of Duke Carlotte carry a dual legendary lineage. But Enver is the only one with 2 parallel bloodlines, while the other 3 brothers have a clear distinction in their bloodlines. However, Enver learned from memory. Due to the subtle conflicts between blood vessels, when using the power of 2 blood vessels simultaneously, the magic consumption will sharply increase, which can be considered a minor flaw of dual blood vessels. In addition to the above treasures, the family will also provide a unit of super magic crystal every 2 days, using special devices to extract the original magic contained in it, in order to continuously improve the qualification and magic affinity of little Envers. Super magic crystal specifically refers to magic crystal raw or with a purity of over 90%. Except for a few extremely special ultra-small or veins, it is only produced in the center of large and above scale or veins. Its measurement adopts the unified weight standard of the Magic Council, peso, for conversion. 1 peso is approximately 0.998 kilograms, and every 5 pesos is a standard unit. In some secretive black markets, a standard unit of super magic crystals has been sold for over 100,000 gold coins, often with value but no market. Due to its ability to serve as the core energy source for high-level magic rituals, disaster-level magic weapons, and more. Super magic crystal is classified as a top-level strategic material by the Empire, with strict control over its circulation on the market. Its status is almost equivalent to that of mushroom weapon raw materials in previous lifetimes. What few people know is that there is a fundamental difference between newly mined super magic crystals and magic crystals with a purity below 90%. In the super magic crystal, there is a trace of original magic. This kind of magic has an extremely special property. Professionals who absorb this magic for a long time can steadily and without side effects enhance their own talents. Including but not limited to enhancing physical fitness, enhancing affinity for magic, purifying spiritual power, etc. Moreover, the younger the age and the lower the strength, the greater the benefits of absorbing the original magic. This secret recipe is only circulated between nobles and high-level professionals and is strictly restricted from being leaked. Envers was also unaware of this in his past life until he absorbed fragments of memory. All large magic crystal mines produced by super magic crystals are controlled by nobles and powerful forces. Once the super magic crystal is mined, it will be immediately sent back to the family's secret repository for storage. Only super magic crystals that have been used by descendants of the family and extracted from their original magic will enter the market. In fact, there are still many secret remedies that can enhance the talent of future generations, which are also the means used by the upper class to maintain their own status. From the starting line, the gap between the upper and lower levels has already widened significantly. Some readers may have some questions about the family surnames here. Please refer to the family surnames related to the work. End of this chapter. Chapter 9. The Life of Nobles. You are listening at novelfull.audio. The source has no content or has errors. Chapter 10. Learning. Learning makes me happy. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 10. Learning. Learning makes me happy. When breakfast time ended, Envers officially began his day of study. Fiona also separated from him and received different education. Firstly, there are 2 linguistics of magic, currently teaching the common Mani language of the continent and the language of the elves on the Far East continent. Then 1 hour of learning noble etiquette, covering topics such as interpersonal relationships, behavior, grammar, and addressing. In the study of aristocratic etiquette, Envers also learned the meaning behind his super long name. Ranking first is one's own name, followed by the place of birth, followed by the names of both parents, and finally the title of nobility in family surname. If there is a significant difference in background between the parents, only the name of the powerful family can be used. In the future, when Envers reaches the 9th level, he can still use his own title between his parents' names and noble titles. For example, Carlot's full name. Caro Kalas Drama Nia Winter Cold Lo Olivandi. The cold of winter among them is the 9th ranked title of Caro. The last magic hour in the morning is used to study history, unlike the Enlightenment education. Now, we are studying the history of the Empire, which includes some secrets that only the four major families and the royal family are aware of. Although he had gained some understanding in his memory fragments, Enver still listened with great interest when he listened to the historical mentor's explanation again. When the morning study ended, Enver relaxed. There is nothing to learn in the afternoon, and he can freely manage the time from lunch to dinner. Unlike ordinary aristocratic tutoring, the strength and growth of bloodline aristocrats mostly rely on the maturity of their bloodline. As long as they can complete their daily learning progress normally, the family does not constrain their free time. Usually, Enver would take Fiona and play a magic game with his peers in a castle or garden. This behavior can effectively enhance the favorability of this future 9th-level powerhouse. He will spend the rest of his time in the large library of Yuelinbao. Even in his past life, reading was one of his few pleasures. He enjoyed the process of turning page by page, slowly realizing the mystery of the book, and absorbing the essence of knowledge. After arriving in this magical world, he had the opportunity to encounter various mysterious magical knowledge, which made him ecstatic. The Yuelinbao library utilizes spatial extension techniques to make the interior space much larger than the exterior. Its area reaches tens of thousands of square meters and its height can reach tens of meters. The environment is elegant and quiet, with the unique fragrance of old books permeating it, making one feel relaxed and happy. The entire library is divided into 3 levels by a light golden suspended corridor, with the lowest level atrium serving as an area for reading and rest. The magnificent magic crystal chandelier hangs from the dome above the atrium, with thousands of crystals reflecting brilliant light forming sharp and long spirals, like a huge cluster of light crystals hanging down, magnificent to the extreme. Surrounding the reading area are countless black pearl wood bookshelves that reach up to the ceiling, including ancient books and even magic books. But most books have protective green magic runes flashing on their surfaces that cannot be opened. Only a few books without runes can Enver read them normally. At the age of 5, when Enver first entered the library of the castle, he showed a strong interest in books. Upon seeing this, Duke Carlot waved his hand and granted him access to the library, allowing him to read the books during his free time in the afternoon. As Enver had not yet entered the ranks, for safety reasons, the Duke only allowed him access to the regular collection of books in the library. Although there are many rare and isolated books among them, Enver still cannot access those true magic books. In my memory, little Enver was not very interested in reading, except for various miscellaneous stories. He really enjoys biographies of heroes, such as the stories of dragons and princesses. It is worth mentioning that due to the absence of major imperial wars for thousands of years, the literary level of this world has become very advanced. The story of the dragon and princess also evolved from the original. The princess was captured by the dragon, and her true identity is mostly that the brave prince of the neighboring country defeated the dragon and married the princess. This cliché and contemporary storyline gradually developed into a bizarre series of dragons and princesses. Enver glanced over a book, and the rough plot of it suddenly came to mind. For example, the hero defeated the dragon and obtained the castle and treasure left by the dragon, but gradually grew scales and claws, eventually becoming a new dragon. In the fragmented memory, the Duke learned that little Enver was reading this book and asked him a question. Why did the brave eventually transform into a new dragon? There must be a magician who studies the taboos of life and has conducted evil magic experiments in that castle. Young Enver pondered for a moment and gave a serious answer. For this answer, the Duke just smiled and nodded, touching his light golden short curly hair. Example 2. The princess has been with the dragon for a long time and has developed feelings over time. The prince came to challenge the dragon, but was framed by the princess and ultimately defeated and eaten by the dragon. If we change the phrase, falling in love with the dragon for a long time to, making a deal with the dragon, it would probably be the most realistic of these stories. Enver carefully looked at the spine of the book and remembered it, whether in memory scenes or in games from previous lives. This book ranks 7th on the most popular biographical charts of the Age of Mysteries. Example 3. The prince fought against the dragon, but ultimately lost. Although he tried his best to make the princess escape, the prince himself fell into the dragon's clutches. The first week, 1 month later, #######. Finally, the prince and the dragon lived happily together in the castle. Strange knowledge has increased. Thinking of the content of this book, Enver instinctively glanced left and right, pulled out the book, and placed it in the furthest corner of the bookshelf. This book must not be seen by Fiona. By the way, this book ranks 14th in the previously mentioned ranking. Example 4. The prince infiltrated the castle, but after finding the princess, he was blocked by a dragon in her room. Due to the dragon's excessive power, the prince had no choice but to change into the princess's clothes and pretend to be her twin sister, attempting to pass the level cutely. But when the prince's identity was exposed, the dragon became even more excited. If it weren't for the critical moment when the author was a eunuch, it is estimated that this book could also make it to the leaderboard. Enver glanced at the author's signature and place of publication, and sure enough, he was still an author from the Federation of the Kingdom of Edel. Example 5. After the princess was captured by the dragon, a brave warrior came to see the king and threatened to go to the dragon's castle to save the princess. The king joyfully asked his name. The hero said, "My name is Wow." A name accounts for 90% of the content, but it's not even finished yet. Yes, in his past life, little Enver didn't read a single book, but a complete set like this. A certain owner of the Ollivandy family, for the purpose of collected almost all versions of the story of the princess and the dragon, and put them in the family's large library. As for why Duke Carlotte did not interfere. As long as the daily learning progress meets the standard, the Duke does not mind little Enver's personal hobbies. I don't know if these authors have been attacked and killed by real dragons. Maybe the author of the 4th book has already been shot dead. Shaking his head in tears and laughter, Enver walked towards the bookshelf where the basic theories of magic were placed. A pale finger slid over the spine of a book, eventually stopping on a book that I had no memory of. Enver withdrew it and returned to the reading area to begin today's reading. End of this chapter.